what is your 3 p.m. coffee? Right?
Yeah.
There's a kind of a growing awareness in the health space of I shouldn't be drinking caffeine post 4 o'clock, post 3 o'clock, right? I know it, so what do? But I still need that boost. So we said, okay, let's take Javazen because it has caffeine from tea and it has caffeine from cacao. And let's then take some decaf coffee, use the same balanced recipe, and then provide a 3 p.m. half calf. So instead of getting a full dose, you get a way lower dose, but it's appropriate to have that in your afternoon.
This is Evolve CPG, a community of purpose-driven brand leaders who not only believe in better, but actively pursue it. That's better products, better brands, and better leadership for a better world. Join our online community where we're going further, faster, together at community.evolvecpg.com. I'm your host, Gage Mitchell, founder and creative director of Modern Species, a sustainable brand design agency helping better brands grow and scale their impact. On today's episode, we're speaking with Aaron Wallach, founder and chief energy officer of Javazen, about the lessons learned from the brand's initial launch, successes and failures, and how he's approaching the relaunch differently.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Wallach. I am the founder of Javazen. I started this company in 2014. I was the chief product officer, so primarily in charge of designing and creating the blends. I am a medical herbalist and have been practicing, prescribing, and helping all kinds of clients with their questions about herbal medicine, about living their best lives with the healthiest kinds of, practices on a daily basis. So whether that's through coaching or through, just taking the best supplements, I really am an advocate for finding everyone's biggest potential through what they take on a daily basis. And that involves a total picture of health and wellness. But Javazen comes into the picture because it provides I guess I would call it an energy boost that doesn't, I would say, create the negatives that a lot of other drinks I found at least have. And that was some of the journey of, where Javazen began. I've been doing product development in Javazen for, 8 years now. So developed, many different iterations of the blend and blends, for very different kind of functions. And ultimately I'm a passionate entrepreneur, love the space of, the fusion of new technology, new health products, and just kind of a wellness, advocate for all my customers and everyone who, gets to work with me. So there you go.
That's awesome. I'm excited to have you on the show, not only because I am a fan of the product, but also just because I'm really interested in this story because you and I connected a long time back during the first launch of Javazen around, my agency was helping with a little bit of messaging work or whatever, but I love the product. I love seeing you guys grow and win all these pitch slams and do a bunch of different things like that.
That's right.
And then I'm especially excited to hear kind of what's happened since then and kind of the motivation and everything behind this relaunch, for lack of a better word. But before we dive in there, I'd love to have you share kind of the founding story of the product a little bit, because I love hearing about you and your co-founders for the first round and how your different kind of personalities came together to make this product possible.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key parts of how Javazen really got the momentum is the really quality people we found, and the founding team was so dynamic and strong. I think that really created a lot of energy between us that moved it fast. So let's just get to it. So it's let's say 2013 in University of Maryland. So this is a college dorm room startup story. We were in this accelerator called the Hinman CEO program at the University of Maryland, where I would say it effectively self-selects, right? The best of the best are the people who are the most interested in doing business right then in school, not waiting for a degree or some sort of permission. It's really the platform for, hey, I have an idea. I want to do this now. What resources does my university have to help me get this going? And the team of Javazen took that really seriously. And I think that was the initial, some of the initial self-selecting process and how we were able to find each other. One of my co-founders, Eric Goldman, he was a coffee aficionado. Like, he was the person roasting green coffee beans in his oven. Like,
Wow.
he took it way too far. That's, just to kind of say. And I was a personal trainer, health coach, doing my thing at the University of Maryland, riding my scooter around, kinesiology, major, really focused on the health and wellness. He, in class, I think we were just talking once, and he just said, like, he had a lot of trouble sleeping and really struggled with his energy on a daily basis. He was just talking to me about crashing all the time and not feeling awake or alive, and just college style, like putting in crazy hours and really not just a very unbalanced, let's say that. And I immediately honed in on his coffee usage because he was way, way, way overboard on his coffee. And I started doing some fundamental research with him about coffee and about how we can make it a part of his day and not be like every day, every couple hours of the same drink. Yeah. And along that journey, we came across some fascinating research out of Japan that really got us going. We looked into the history of caffeine, and caffeine is truly an amazing molecule, one of the most studied by far, primarily due to the incentives behind it. Because, look, you have tea coming out of Japan and obviously China. So there was a lot of industry studies about caffeine in the 1960s. And one of the key findings was this additional compound in green tea called L-theanine or L-thionine, however you want to pronounce it. And along with other kinds of molecules that come along with the ride. It's not the only one, but it's the one that was identified for sure. And combining the two creates this completely different caffeine experience. And that was Javazen. That was the key sauce to the whole story. We discovered that adding in green tea with coffee, if we were able to get the two somehow together, is a completely better experience. It's revolutionary in terms of how we felt, our focus. It completely changed his life because he was able to start having coffee on a daily basis. And I hated coffee. I'm a high energy, drink 40 ounces of water in the morning, do 10 minutes of yoga before you even, can open your eyes kind of guy. And this was the first time I enjoyed coffee with green tea associated with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really the inspirational moment. And from there, we said, okay, how do we make it taste good? Because it's matcha. Like, matcha's green. It's real green. Now I'm okay with this. I've been known to, drink algae and, whatever kind of Sazandra berry and, all kind of mushrooms drinks. And this is 2014. I was doing this, practice for a long time. We get into how I found how I got involved with the superfood emphasis, but key to the story now is the business part of it, where I, as now the product guy, passionate about foods, really designed, okay, what else can we add to Javazen? And then it became about chocolate. The theobromine, one of the things we identified in the cacao is this vasodilator. So what does coffee do? It constricts your blood vessels. Theobromine dilates them, meaning that it increases blood flow.
Interesting.
Right? Cinnamon does the same thing. It's been shown to increase blood flow. So we were like, wow, two natural or potentially organic ingredients that can counteract one of the key negatives of coffee.
And luckily, two ingredients that also taste really good.
Exactly. Yeah, and people put cinnamon in their coffee, which was kind of a cool find too. I was new to the coffee thing. I was a tea guy. I was like the Zen tea, really focused. And
well, here's a question: were you ever hacking your tea though? Were you ever like adding like chocolate or cinnamon or something else to your tea, or was tea just kind of like mellow enough that you didn't need a hack?
Like I was one of my mentors. I have two real mentors in the space. David Wolf and Sean Stevenson both have huge followings, huge podcasts, and they really. I went to their conferences, and they're like, my first personal trainer was Sean, and
oh wow,
and he now is one of the biggest health podcasts in the world, and for him, he just taught me about raw foods and about, superfoods. So I was a raw foodist, for a whole summer, I remember. And that was pretty wild. And then, so for me, it was like I was doing raw cacao smoothies for, a long time. And just one of these very forward on the cutting edge of health and wellness.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Not so much tea. I would drink tea, but I'd really just be doing my daily smoothies. That was my focus.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you cracked the code on like coffee has too many crashes and negative side effects. Tea is great, but maybe people who are more coffee drinkers want that initial jolt instead of the more mellow kind of uptick of tea. And then you were adding in other superfoods like chocolate and cinnamon to like balance out some of the negative effects of coffee. Like all that's starting to come together. And you guys are, the three of you, kind of building this business in school. And one thing I remember being really impressed about when I met you all and found out about the business is that, three students with this great product, crushing all these competitions, winning, like, I think it was like Cupid's Cup and getting advisors Ariana Huffington.
I want to, for sure. We'll get there. I'll give you, I'll for sure, get there. But I think the first piece of advice I want to tell your audience is, all right, great. Yeah. So now we're a couple college kids. We're in this university program. What's the first lesson? And the first lesson that I tell every founder is start selling as fast as possible before it's ready.
Oh,
get it out there, try, fail, do it. And that's what we did. We created a blend and we were like, okay, let's, there was a lot of talk back and forth, but then it became about, through the entrepreneurship class, how can we get this going? And we went to Costco, bought like all the ingredients we needed from Costco, straight up. Yeah. Like, we bought the cinnamon from Costco, we bought the coffee from Costco, and we bought, as bulk orders of cacao online and printed labels using the Hinman CEO laser printer with sticker paper we got from Home Depot. I'm serious. And we went to, Uline for for our initial foil bags. And we purchased, one of these, as quickly as possible. We got to the farmer's market, the College Park farmer's market. And that's really where we saw the fastest curve, the exponential growth, and the best feedback. And that's where we iterated. We iterated with the customer. We got the email list. We did the A/B testing. We there was another ingredient, which is a little secret, that we ended up removing from Javazen, that we decided it actually is still too ahead of the game. It's on the, I would call this, like, when someone discovers it and figures out how to market it right, it will become a massive supplement, but it isn't there yet.
Gotcha.
Pine pollen is I take it daily. But
okay, cool.
Yeah, that was in the original Javazen. But I think there is where we really saw the biggest growth. And then it was, and then it became so much learning because we understood, okay, now we need a sales sheet. So we went to our local, we went to our first grocery store and got our first real sale at Mom's Organic Market, and then did demos there.
Nice.
And then we went to additional farmers market in the DC area and started getting more feedback from like a broader base of customers, not just because of our college experience. And then that creates the real traction where we can start positioning this idea and this brand and this energy into something that people could celebrate and award. And I think that's really where, we started getting some of the awards. I think our best one was we won DC's Technology Startup of the Year through Techstars.
Wow. Okay.
A coffee company, nice. Right? Yeah. So I think, and then we went to Vegas and got to pitch with a bunch of other technology companies. And everyone was like, this is when hoverboards were big in 2015. I remember
hoverboards and coffee.
I remember going and, oh man. Yeah, I remember when the hoverboards came out. That was, oh gosh, that was so fun. Yeah, and it was all those pitches, right? And I think you get a lot of great feedback. You learn how to get, position your company, show the revenue, show the projections, get the, real customer feedback and saying, look, if we get this funding, if we get this support, this recognition, this is going to allow us to continue our growth and then start exploding it into wherever we chose. And this is where I can look back and remember this so distinctly. And really I remember this. I remember some of the decisions that we had to make at this point. And I believe now if we would have chosen differently, we would be in Javazen would be in a different place today. But all of this energy, right? So let's say, we got into Moms, right? And I'm going to finish with our biggest award. We got into Whole Foods and on a trial program. And then we started thinking, okay, where can we get to? How do we get bigger and bigger? And we landed our first deal at a massive trade show. But I want to just open up. I think that's where we met you, right? Expo East? Is that where we met?
I can't remember. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So that was big in our story too. But yeah, Expo East is where we started really after the farmers market, after our first local organic store, right? We're okay, what comes next? So we get a booth last minute at Expo East, and then we meet the next level of professionals. And there we kind of get taught this whole game of here's the retail stores, here's Target, here's where all the big buyers are coming and looking for the next kind of products. And we arrived on the scene fresh and, fresh-eyed, and we landed our first major deal on our first show. And that's when we were like, wow, we need to upgrade our branding. And I think that's where we kind of began our journey together and how we got started there.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's there's so many lessons learned along the way, right? It's hard to even keep track of all of them, but you're just in such a hustle, go out and do this, go out and do that. This other opportunity pops up. What? We're a tech company. There's all this stuff popping up, but you're just in that hustle of go out and chase all these opportunities. But one thing you mentioned, I've heard multiple entrepreneurs say is just get out there and sell your product, but get in front of people and just have conversations and get feedback, as much feedback as you possibly can. So I'm real curious, when you were doing your initial farmers markets and saying that you got a lot of good insights from that, was it mostly on flavor development, or were you getting feedback on function, how people were feeling? Was it mostly around messaging, trying to figure out how to tell the story of Javazen in a way that would engage people and not make their head explode when they think coffee and tea combined? What was it that you kind of learned in those farmers market talk to your customers experience?
Yeah, let's get back to the basics, right? What is Javazen? Javazen, as our first iteration, was a blend of coffee with matcha green tea, raw chocolate, cinnamon, and vanilla. At the time, that was our initial flavor, and that was where we focused our initial energy. There was then this pressure as a product developer and manager to create additional additional flavors. And we thought, okay, what else would the theoretical person like? We trialed then 2 others, which are no longer sold, which is Boost and Relax. And we felt like, oh, wow, we have this trifecta. The theory is they're going to have it at each part of their day. And we're going to give them a boost in the morning, Javazen for their, every day, and then Relax at night. And boy, do we learn some big failures there. That was where we received some great feedback. And I think looking back, that was my first lesson of how not to do product development, where like we had a winning blend and we got great feedback on that one. And using that idea, we thought, well, why don't we create problems and develop solutions for our theoretical customer? And then let's just sell them on this like whole package, when fundamentally the core promise was then it was such a confusing brand, because then there was no heart to what we were doing. The original, like when you're going into an industry, right? And let's look at coffee or tea. There's so much preconception, right? So when you're developing a software or a product or any kind of, interesting, new, like I would call it like just groundbreaking kind of like, offering that changes the dynamics of what people think is possible. That's where it becomes fundamental to stick to what makes you special and not get into a broader like storyline that just is a theoretical, like, let's just now try to become everything versus forgetting.
Yeah. Like too much too soon almost, right? Like, and where was that pressure? Where do you feel that pressure was coming from? Like, oh, most product companies have multiple products, so we should probably have more products? Or was it like customers asking, right? Customers asking for it, or like investors or advisors kind of pushing it that way?
I'm not sure. We just felt like, oh, in an ideal world, like we did this thing right. Everyone loves this blend. Let's now take this concept and let's keep mixing coffee with tea. So then we took a darker roast and the yerba mate and acai berry. Like we're like, oh, the fundamentals are like coffee with a tea and then maybe one superfood. So we felt that, if we did like, that was our focus. It was coffee, a superfood, we called it, and then a tea. And that's how we would design all of our blends. But that lost sight of the fundamental problem that we were solving.
Yeah, that makes sense. Was it that the Relax one, I think it was what it was called, but the lower caffeine one, was that what kind of got some of the attention from, I think it was Ariana Huffington was super into Javazen as an advisor because of like the whole problem with like caffeine and sleep and stuff, right? Was it that blend, or was it just the base Javazen that she was excited about?
I think it was that, and also the base Javazen, just as a fundamental like theory of how do we take coffee and make it more sustainable, more part of a healthy rhythm versus a, everyday kind of like, reliance and like almost just like as a crutch versus like as a tool. I think, so Ariana Huffington got related. We get into this in the backstory, but one of our peak moments was when we won Cupid's Cup for $80,000, kind of one of these Shark Tank moments where the founder of Under Armour, Ariana Huffington, and the founder of Quicken Loans, we all got together and pitched to the whole community at University of Maryland, and we beat out 500 startups across the world, and we won this massive competition. A really, really special big moment for us. And looking back at that really, put us on a trajectory, which now if I had to think about it, I would have really doubled, we'll get into that later, what went wrong and where we got a little lost in the weeds. But that's where, again, like the Relax blend, let's get back to the product. For us, that was a great moment of who buys decaf coffee. We assume that, if we create this delicious, it tasted probably, out of all the blends, it tasted the best. Like it was sweet, it was rosy, we used rooibos tea, goji berry, lucuma, just a delicious blend. Like people really loved it. If you didn't tell them what it was, If you just told them it was tea, they thought it was delicious. But as a part of a coffee company, right? Who, like, when we would go and try to sell it, and we bought so much decaf coffee and we put it in all these stores like Wegmans and all kinds of places. No one bought this. Everyone was like, what? Like, who is
take out all the fun? Yeah. That's the phrase I hear all the time.
No, yeah, like one thing I'll tell any coffee entrepreneur is don't ever launch an initial founding lineup with a decaf blend, right? Decaf was what I learned is after they were what I've learned is if you're a decaf drinker, it means you were a previous coffee drinker who is now retired, right? Like you're like, oh, I want coffee, but I just like, no, it messes me up. So I'm a decaf person, or straight up like you're pregnant or something, right? And you just aren't doing caffeine. Those are the people. So very specific, not your average person. So yeah, lots of lessons learned there. And I think that's a lot of what informed, my decision to move the company forward into its next iteration, which is where we are now. But like very, very interesting, that whole process of like learning.
Yeah, well, let's dig into that kind of, you mentioned a couple times the lessons learned and the assumptions that were made versus like the truth of how it turned out, et cetera. And, we've been hearing a little sprinkling of maybe too many products too soon that kind of muddied the kind of pitch a little bit or the proposition. We heard like maybe there was some kind of like stretching a little bit too thin of growing too fast in retail while still learning about your product, et cetera. But what were some of those kind of moments where you were riding this kind of growth, all this excitement, winning competitions, and your mind is here at like, in 5 years we're going to be this gigantic whatever. But like I know along the way a lot of early brands get stretched too thin too quickly. So that's kind of my hunch of where this story might go. But tell me what actually happened. Like where was Javazen was on the trajectory, and then it got paused. And I haven't had a chance to talk with you since. So tell us a little bit about that part of the story.
Yeah. That was really where we found ourselves. So we won that competition. We were riding high, and we had some additional dollars in our account. And then we also won a Maryland startup award as well at the time. That was our peak, and we thought, okay, now that we've received 2 major rounds of like grant funding, we're ready. We're ready for the prime time here. And we kind of assumed that there would be an investment or some sort of, larger institution or someone or some kind of outside firm that would help us kind of like push it out to the rest of the, push it out. And we knew there was intense capital needs. We were aware of like some of the stretching, but we just assumed that if we had enough options and enough stores, that would propel us to establishing a fundamental baseline of our metrics and numbers. And because I think we were also a little bit kind of like starry-eyed, having gone to our first show, early on, and really like some of the earliest validation we received was from that show. So probably some of the best feedback and real numbers, real sales, like not, no kidding, like real people were buying it. Real marketing was happening. There was a lot of momentum, other little awards, other little things that we were going to, like little conferences and winning this award, going to all the big industry shows in the food space, and really receiving like, wow, this is like a great product. This is working. We like what you're doing. Everyone's telling us this is go, go, go. And we want you in our store. And when you like fly out to Target and have a meeting with the head buyer for coffee, and she's like, this is great. Are you ready? And we're like, yeah, let's get, we'll get back to you when we have the funding ready. And we were like, all right. And then we kept getting those opportunities around 2016, 17. And that was where the wobble started to happen. We were in 1,500 stores. that actually wasn't the problem. The problem was, in order to make it worthwhile to continue the operation, there was a level of, we need even a bigger, you need more volume and more opportunity to sell. But in order to get there, we needed to get funding. And that was really our tragedy, right? We weren't successful in raising money that looked at a company in a 5-year term, where the growth is slow. The growth is there. The sales are there. Profitable at every store. But unless someone's willing to underwrite, or you have a lot of personal wealth that could throw $500,000 into, sustainable growth through friends and family, that's kind of the gap that I learned. Unless you have underlying foundations, that's where you can get wobbly. And that's where we found ourselves. And the distraction and the excitement of getting into your first local, store, that's where you could find actually the biggest amount of time. Because then what happens, I found, at least with my first go at this, was when you enter that first store, you then create this system in place where you create a warehouse and you develop a relationship with a distributor, and you start making that a daily pattern. And that becomes like such a fundamental time and focus of like managing relationships, making sure deliveries are on time, doing production runs to meet projection schedules. You kind of create the system, and you're like, wow, the system's in place. Now we need more. So you get more. And that surprisingly isn't the most challenging part. What becomes the key is where, if you get to a place where that self-operation is too small, and then you need to move to the bigger situation. So that was the lesson learned. It's easy to get enamored with great feedback and a lot of success. But then if you aren't able to capitalize on the opportunity with real financing, what does it ultimately mean?
Yep. Yeah, I think what I've seen across all of our clients, and just being in the industry for so long, is that you either grow slow and steady, funded off of your profits, and, you're going to have slower growth, fewer doors, fewer whatever, but just try to maximize whatever opportunities you do have. Or if you do want to go fast, get in all the doors, get in these big chains, make these big, fulfill these big purchase orders, et cetera, is you just need to be constantly fundraising, like 24/7 almost. I think maybe what could have resulted in a different path is if at the time that you were doing this, if crowdfunding was more available. Like I've been seeing more and more people in the industry go to platforms like WeFunder, and they're able to get, 500,000 or whatever it is from kind of families, friends, customers, amateur investors, et cetera, and get that all kind of lumped into one investor line on your books, which is just this great asset that I think before that was made more legal. Like you're saying, you either had to have rich family or something like that, or you had to go and pitch these giant rounds of funding that are going to look for certain criteria and a track record of sales and velocity and all this other kind of stuff. And it might be hard to get when you're in that kind of in-between spot. So I think when you're on that kind of like fast growth mode, but you don't have the cash lined up already, that's when you get in that like sticky situation where things are going really well. The only problem is cash flow or whatever, right? And if
that's
that
what it became. Like I remember where the business really paused was we had a massive order came in that we just were like, we don't have the money to pay for all the product. Like we already had product in the warehouses. We kind of so we did a production run, a massive one. We got a massive new order. We were like, we need to fill this, and we were just behind in our fundraising. So we even did a kind of fundraising round with friends and family. Like we kind of, even with that's the thing, even with the WeFunder, even with those kind of assets, right? I think because of specifically coffee. I think it depends on. I think WeFunder and those kind of things, like that's what was so frustrating about us, is that we were so close. We were so close to like there, but what industry are we in? We're in one of the most competitive industries with an extremely expensive product. So unlike, some like, ready to drink beverages or chips or, even dips and sauces, right? Our fundamental ingredient is expensive. There's no getting around it. Coffee is expensive. And in our volumes, because we weren't owning the entire supply chain from the get-go, that makes it really difficult for us to really, we thought we'd be able to, do it based on like, our brand and our messaging. Once we kind of got that, worked with you and kind of like really leveled that up, we thought that the messaging would kind of propel us and allow us to keep that like sustainable, sustainable element going. But it turned out that if we're trying to compete with Starbucks, Nestle, JAB Group, which owns like, Panera and like Dunkin', and then there's us, and then there's, all of the, very high end coffees based out of California. That what we kind of learned is our space is so rare, because one of the lessons learned also is for coffee, there's a certain like, I would say, story that we didn't follow, which was unique, is that we never had a store. We never like had a baseline business of a coffee shop. We kind of just created this product that was a great solution. And looking back, what was so dumb, and this is what I kick myself about, is that if we, at that moment when we won all those awards, right, stopped retail cold, we just pulled out of all retail. Maybe we did like a couple of our local stores, but we just said no to a lot of money. And we took all that money and put it all on Facebook and all online. One of the biggest regrets is during Javazen's time is that we never ran even a $10,000 marketing campaign online. We ran multiple. We would spend easily $20,000 to go to all the conferences every year. Right. And do, in-store promotions even more. We would pay tons of money for that, but we never paid for real marketing online. So kind of what you see now is like Mudwater and all these other brands that are really just, half of their fundraising, where does it go? To Facebook. Yep. They literally like are raising, like when you're a founder today of a company, it's like if I was, and Javazen's on the evolution story again. So we funder and all those things are, in the cards. But for us, that's really where, if I had to look back, it's like the lesson learned is without that fundamental business behind a brand, if you're going to try to compete with the biggest billion-dollar market cap companies in the world, if you aren't already profitable with another business line, don't go there. Just don't. Yeah. Stay off of that shelf.
Yeah, I think along those same lines, another thing that's challenging is when you're something like a Mudwater or a Javazen or something like that that's not a product that people already know about, by which I mean, if you're launching just another coffee roaster, you just have to kind of compete on maybe the look and feel of your package or your price point or like the quality of your roast or something. But what Javazen needed to do is educate people on this is kind of coffee, this is kind of tea, this is, something better than both. And that's hard to do at retail, right? Because you just get your limited amount of space to communicate on front panel. So to your point, like if you had focused instead of on brick and mortar retail to like online communications, then like digital direct to consumer stuff, then you would have had a little bit more time to kind of like woo that customer and explain the benefits and tell them more of the story and, across like 7 different exposures before they finally bite and go ahead and buy some product. So I think it's also just totally dependent on the type of product you have. If it's something brand new, like I know that was a big part of Pat from Chapul's struggle as well, as selling cricket protein products. Like that was a lot of education needs to go into that, right? You can't just launch that and expect people to be going to the grocery store with cricket protein on their shopping list, or even when they do come across it, how much information are they going to get off of a quick front panel in this grocery store full of thousands of products, right? Whereas if you can kind of own their eyeballs or their ears or whatever for a little bit with some videos on Instagram and Facebook and different things like that, you have a little bit more time to tell that story, and you can kind of warm them up a few more times before they make a purchase, and then like just give them a really great offer.
Exactly. And I think that story part of it, and that's what Javazen is like we're preparing to do now, and this is where we're focused today. And I think this is where we're excited to relaunch it, right? So for us, what I saw is after let's just kind of like wrap up round one. After that moment where we had that massive order from our newest store, we went out, and I remember we went full-time fundraising. We said, pause, we're going to go out and we need to raise $2 million. Like we raised probably total, let's say $500,000, maybe like a little bit less, a little bit more, but about that. And that got us to such a good point. Like we were in 2,000 stores, profitable selling, but now we were like, where we need to move it bigger, then it just, we know what are the deals we got in the door. We got some deals in the door, but none of them were also attractive to the founding team. As a fundamental part of the business, it became clear like we were going to basically get an exit, but not really, I guess, like not really get any like massive tangible like benefit from receiving the money. It was just very, very much like, you're giving up, we're taking over, this is it. Hand us the keys, bye-bye. And that wasn't attractive. So it kind of became a story of everyone was kind of like, all right, like this was a good ride, but we're not really willing to part with it, but we want to, kind of, maybe still try a little bit. And it kind of just went silent. We pulled back from all of our stores. We kind of like shut down operations. I actually at the time tried another, I went back to some product iteration and thought maybe we could go the CBD route. And I did that for a little bit.
Interesting, yeah.
And then I soured on CBD because I did a lot of research, and I just decided it was a fad. And the kind of environment was just a little too like young for me, and it wasn't where I want to focus my time and my energy.
Yeah.
And then we all decided to walk away. And we sold the company, so we closed down shop. The original business closed, and we sold the assets, and we moved on. At that point, I started working, in my journey, for an Amazon reseller. Did some consulting contracts for product development as well. Help like do some juicing and just kind of like doing my thing. And then COVID hit. And then I was like, wow, like if I, that whole ride with Javazen, that peak and that glory, like if I was to redo it again and I could create a business, what would I do differently? And I was like, wow, like we have so much already figured out. We know this blend is amazing. We know there's fans out there. We know people love it. Let's redo it, but let's just do it online. And let's do that $10,000 marketing push. And let's get our first like PR, like let's start rebuilding. And at this stage, we're very much in the VIP launch, right? So the relaunch is very much let's reconnect with our old customer base and our old fans, and let's get that feedback. Let's start. Let's not wait. And we're getting that feedback, and the response has been phenomenal. And I'm happy to discuss more about that. But yeah, that's really where, we kind of learned a lot from the first go around. And I think as a marketer, like I think you would like this is one of the key lessons was, what is the problem Javazen solving? Right? Yeah. If you were to sum it up, what would you say?
Me?
Yeah.
I feel like the problem Javazen is solving is kind of the initial proposition was that you need the energy without the crash, right? So it's helping people kind of live the better life. That's kind of generic, but it's like helping people have the
No,
energy to pursue their life.
Say no more. On the front of our package, if you go to javazen.co, it says crash-free coffee, awaken your potential. That you literally nailed it on the dot. And we revisited that fundamental promise. As growing with the brand, learning more about product, how to iterate, I just came back to the problem we were solving was crash-free coffee, solving that coffee problem and creating not like not a whole lifestyle of like, boost and relax with decaf, but sticking to the core and
to solve the one problem first.
Yeah, exactly. Rebranding and providing that real solution to people and really helping people that way and giving people those tools.
Yeah, I feel like that's like such a great lesson because so many people just try to do this has come up multiple times, but too much too soon, right? And when you're trying to explain something really complex to a consumer or to investors or to whomever, it gets really muddy and it gets confusing and you spend a lot of time and energy just trying to figure out how to explain it. Like, we can't just say this because we're also this, like there's all this kind of push and pull. But if you can really just dial down and tighten to just solving that one problem first and just get really good at communicating that, build a base of loyal customers and build a lot of sales. And then eventually, once you're kind of steady there and people know you for that thing and they know that problem that you solve, then you can always launch other solutions that solve tangential problems or something like that. But in the beginning, when it's hard to win the loyalty or the customers or the clarity, like just tightening as much as possible is super valuable.
Yeah, that actually was, I'll tell you this, one of the best meetings I ever had in my life was having 2 hours with the founder of Under Armour when he was CEO of the company in his offices in Baltimore. And I remember him saying to us, like at that meeting, he was like, all right, you have 3 blends. Like, this is confusing. I don't get what you're doing. He says, like, when I started Under Armour, what did I have? I had one shirt. One shirt that solved one problem. And that was cotton shirts were like nasty and disgusting after you sweated. My shirts weren't. And they kept you cool and they kept you mobile without slowing you down. And he solved that one problem. And that became the emphasis. Now, obviously, Under Armour is, a very different company from when, from 1996 to when we were talking to him. So it's, now it had multiple products. But he said at this stage, when you're first starting, identify the problem, solve it and solve it well and solve it for everyone and solve it for as many people as possible. And then don't create new like identities. Just iterate off of that one and spread your wings there. So that's where the lineup today really kind of is how it was created. We have our original blend, which we kind of wanted to bring back from the original customer. Like if you love that blend, and I want to make sure that we're showing up for those people who missed that one. So we nailed it. And then one of the feedbacks we always heard was like, gosh, like we love that blend, but it's not dark enough. It didn't give me that coffee like feeling, because some people they are used to their Starbucks. They've been trained their whole lives on Dunkin'.
Yeah, exactly.
And right. So I think the next lesson was like, okay, we're going to create a dark roast Javazen balance, where it's that balance was the original blend, but we're going to take the same magic, but we're going to take a darker coffee and blend it together. So it's a new flavor, but the same promise. And the final version was, okay, there's another issue where because one of our customer and learning about it, like one of the things we understood and a huge problem that, I think we're really going to solve for the industry is, what is your 3 p.m. coffee? Right? Yeah. There's a kind of a growing awareness in the health space of, I shouldn't be drinking caffeine post 4 o'clock, post 3 o'clock. Right. I know it, so what do? but I still need that boost. So we said, okay, let's take Javazen because it has caffeine from tea and it has caffeine from cacao, and let's then take some decaf coffee, use the same balanced recipe, and then provide a 3 p.m. half calf. So instead of getting a full dose, you get a way lower dose, but it's appropriate to have that in your afternoon. And that is, I think, one of the most exciting products we created because we've been seeing such a huge response from people who, when they discover it and they say how good it tastes, like compared to any decaf, it blows it away. So if I was to say recommend any unique blend that is something revolutionary, that half calf, we call it half calf 3 p.m. tells you when to drink it. And
nice.
And that to me is really like some of the excitement that we see going forward. And who knows where the brand will go next, but we're excited with this launch with the three main drivers and the new fresh look. I as a branding professional though, I wanted to get your feedback. What do you think of the new look? What are your, and I'm open to criticism too. So anything you want to see change, happy for some raw feedback.
Yeah, that could be a whole nother conversation, I imagine. But
yeah,
I think one thing that you're queuing in on in terms of packaging trends for sure is just clearly having those ingredients front and center on the package. I think Costco kind of started this trend because they kept seeing that products where it just like clearly showed the mangoes, or if it was like a, let's say mangoes, pumpkin seed and whatever kind of blend snack, like if you just clearly show those ingredients on the front panel, people immediately get what it is. They don't have to read, they don't have to flip over the back panel, so on and so forth. So that seems to be a kind of growing trend in packaging, is just, and especially for a product like yours where people are like, well, what is this stuff? But clearly seeing like the coffee beans, the cacao, and the matcha front of package, I think is going to speed up communication pretty quickly. With that said, I'd be interested to, maybe do some consumer tests or whatever on the color palette that you've got going on. It feels a little bit like a nod to like older kind of natural product movements. It's feeling a little bit like very natural, kind of organic, maybe even touch like international kind of Caribbean type feel. And I wonder if that's appealing, if that's the way people kind of imagine this brand, because I mean it is Javazen, so like you do kind of imagine this more kind of meditative quality, but it's also coffee at the same time, right? So like, are people looking for more energy? Are they looking for like more of that dark roast? Are they looking for the Zen part? And just kind of understanding which elements are communicating that best, like the color palette, and then this the kind of like lines that you've got kind of coming in, showing at the center of the pulling all those three core ingredients together. Like there's some elements like that I would want to test with consumers a little bit to see if those are functioning. But the base core of like the nice clean logo type and the kind of packages on the front of your panel, or sorry, the clear product images on the front panel, I think are probably helping communicate. And then it's just a matter of like the little graphic details, like dialing those in over time, I think. And to your point, like you've said it multiple times, just get out there and start talking to customers, get something out there. Don't worry about like perfecting it day one, especially when you're selling online. Like you can just be getting constant feedback and making small tweaks over time. Whereas when you're printing, hundreds of thousands of these to go into retail, that's a whole different animal.
Right. I think some of the branding elements of the new package are like, we wanted to go high energy in some ways, like show off. So I think, we were competing designs. I don't know if we showed you some of the other ones we were developing, but this one I felt like had like a cool 80s vibe a little bit, kind of like with with like the lines and like the little neon kind of like, somewhat of like vibrancy and like that triangle with the multiple lines. It gave us a clear energy kind of like flowing off the page. And that on the package really pops and it really stands out. And it's not something you're going to see anywhere else. And that was important.
It definitely is unique for a coffee brand. I think, that It's almost like 70s, 80s. Yeah, it does. Now that you say that, it does kind of remind me a little bit of like that 70s show, some of the style towards the end of end of that
Yeah, a
show. So
little
yeah,
bit,
that
right?
makes sense.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I feel like that's kind of come back in its own weird way. So I think it speaks
for sure.
to the today very well. But I think you also mentioned like the color palettes are natural. They're like, you know, aspirational. They're like light. They're, you know, attractive, but not like, you know, not the blank white slate. So I think that I think that is some of like the Zen kind of foundational part of it. And we wanted some new icons. So I think that triangle and like that star and like some of like the key elements there. But then I think you nailed it. I think for any packaging for CPG specifically, one of the things I was a huge advocate for, and I got pushback from my founders, was I always wanted the ingredients on the package, but for some reason there was an agreement, you know. And one of the advantages of being able to purchase it by yourself for yourself is it's me.
Yeah. Now
And
you get to try whatever you want. Yeah.
exactly. And I would say one of the people I want to really mention, and has been mentioned so far, is my brother Michael. He's not on the call today, but I could not have done this, you know, initial launch without him. You know, he's been handling so much and has helped, you know, with design and like the, you know, all the packaging and launch and handling, you know, the shipping and really managing the warehouse that we have, like, and, you know, working on the blends as well with me. I think that's been instrumental to our success. So having like a team that really helped put this together, I think it's so powerful. And so, yeah, while I was able to make that decision on the ingredients, he loved it. And I think we came up with, I think, a really amazing, you know, package that everyone who looks at it's like, wow, this is like, you know, it looks like, I think that was one of the shocking parts. And I will say this, if you have a great package, it takes you far. And
yeah,
so we spent, you know, I know I said like, yeah, just launch and get started, but we decided from an early stage that because Javazen had a great history of great packaging designed by yourself, and, you know, we just felt that we couldn't go backwards too much. We couldn't do a sticker label.
Good point.
So we decided to spend some time on the new design, the new packaging, and I think we nailed it. And I think we're really set for our new digital push. And anyone who's listening to this podcast, I would like to give everyone a code of Zen10, ZEN 10 for, you know, any of their orders. And if you email me, like, you know, I would love to get your feedback on the products. We're really like in the VIP launch. And once we do this initial round of products and we get ready for our next rounds with the real bigger, you know, like digital marketing push, we're really excited to see where this brand will go.
Nice. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing the discount code with the community. We'll be sure to share that in show notes and other things as well. But yeah, that's great. I'm excited to see where it goes. And you know, I know working on packaging, it's always a constant evolution, and it does seem like you've got a good, great base there, and a kind of unique look and feel that it'll be fun to see you kind of carry that out through all your kind of social media and different campaigns and stuff, and continue to see what's working and what's not working, and then, you know, develop it from there. But it's exciting, you know, just in general to see you relaunch. I think I can't remember where I heard this, so don't quote me on it, but I seem to remember at some point seeing some, you know, business entrepreneur magazine or something like that mention that people are usually entrepreneurs on average, like it's their like third or fourth or, you know, something like that business that they've launched that ends up being the most successful. And it's because of these lessons you've learned when you went out and you tried some stuff, and some of it worked and some of it didn't. And you learn a little bit more, and then you go with that knowledge and you try something else. And maybe in that case, like more of it'll work, or maybe you're taking a bigger risk in this other area, but like you just kind of like build all this experience over time. You learn some lessons, you learn what's most important, you learn kind of the right growth curve, you learn where to start and where to hold off on, and so on and so forth. And with all that said, I think this story, like sharing this story of lessons learned from the first go that you're now applying to this relaunch, I think is really powerful. And I hope other people listening in are kind of learning something from your journey, and also just having kind of patience with themselves. Just go out and try some stuff and learn your lessons, and then apply those learnings and just keep moving forward, right? So I think it's really cool that you came on to share this story, and I'm excited for Javazen's relaunch. I'm excited to see where you end up taking it.
Yeah, we're excited to launch our TikTok channel. We've been working behind the scenes for a while to really, I think that's by far where the audience, it's a great way to grow an audience today. I think Facebook and the others have kind of been almost priced out, because it's almost like, you could pay to play there, but find the spaces. Another lesson I could say learn is find the spaces where you could shine and you could really make an impact and grow a community. Don't believe that because, don't just follow where you think that the shiniest, wherever the shiniest diamond is, right? Don't think that's the only place to play. And if you find success, and let's say you might be drawn in, or people might be trying to pull you in that direction, remember to cultivate your own audience, develop your own relationships, and to make your community and serve your community and tell the story that you want to tell and solve the problem that you believe your community is asking for. And stay true to that as long as you can. And that's where you will find probably your greatest success. And any other parts of distraction, or any kind of, if you're relying upon a strategy that requires others to, bring it to fruition, that's a recipe that can work, but is way more dangerous than finding the people to support you along the way. And I don't say any one or other is wrong. It's just a matter of, where can you stack as many elements to lead to your success? And I think staying true to what you're solving is going to help be the best way to, launch a successful product, launch a successful brand, and really make an impact in the world in whatever way, you're looking to do. So yeah, if you have any questions or, want to contact me about product or about health and wellness, feel free to reach me at Aaron@javazen.co. Happy to talk with anyone. Could be about anything, and really want to help everyone in the best way they can, whether it's coffee, caffeine, or getting the most energy out of their day. I think one of the campaigns where you're going to launch, and hopefully we can look back maybe in a year or maybe longer, would be how did we spread the messaging of healthy caffeination, of mindful caffeine usage, of developing patterns and behaviors that utilize caffeine but without abusing it, and by feeling good without the crash. And I think that story we're going to tell, and I'll be excited to say develop that with my community in the coming year.
That's so much awesome advice. Thanks for sharing all that, and maybe we'll get you into the Evolve CPG online community sometime, do some Q&As or some follow-up sessions or whatever else if others have questions. But in the meantime, I appreciate you sharing your wisdom, and I'm again just excited to have Javazen back on the market / excited to see where you can take it now that you've got some renewed kind of clarity on what the point is and how to get where you want to go.
Yeah, me too. Excited to see where the journey takes us, and looking forward to getting the word out there as best as possible. So yeah, thanks so much. This is great.
Good chat.
Really appreciate this.
Good to catch up. Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Aaron or Javazen, go to javazen.co. Business can be a powerful force for good. Is your brand living up to its full potential? Go to evolvecpg.com to learn about our new impact workshop, Exponential Good. Over 6 weeks, we'll be thinking bigger, getting relevant, spreading throughout, going exponential, working backwards, and making it real so you can walk away with a clear vision and a detailed action plan for scaling your brand's positive impact exponentially. Subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel for more innovator interviews, expert advice, and leadership discussions. If you like this episode, leave a heart, thumbs up, or review, and share it with your colleagues. As an ever-evolving show, we also love feedback, so send us your thoughts or ideas for who we should talk to next to evolve@modernspecies.co.
relaunching.com.